Darren Clarke represented Europe as a player 5 times at the Ryder Cup, perhaps never more memorably than it was hosted at the K Club in Ireland in 2006, just 6 weeks after losing his wife Heather to cancer. He won all 3 of his matches that week, including a 4-ball win with his partner Lee Westwood against Tiger Woods and Jim Furyk. He then went on to beat Zach Johnson in the Sunday singles. 2006 was one of 4 times that Clarke has been a member of a victorious Ryder Cup team. His overall record, 10, 7 and 3, but he really stood out in those 4-ball matches, going 6, 2 and 1 in his career. Clarke knows what it's like to be a captain for an away Ryder Cup as well, having led the Europeans in 2016 at Hazeltine. And I spoke with Clarke earlier today. Darren, it's always good to see you. You're coming off a 3rd-place finish on the Champions Tour yesterday. I see you've already taken up residency at Flipper's Beach Bar at the Abaco Club down there in the Bahamas. Have the celebrations started early?
Well, I don't normally celebrate finishing 3rd, Eamon, but on this occasion, I've got my buddies here, Matt and Kevin, so I will probably be having a few little libations.
When I saw you at Portrush during the Open, you mentioned that you planned to spend the week of the Ryder Cup glued to your television at home. You weren't going to miss a shot. Why does it still mean so much to you so many years on?
I don't know, Eamon. I think, and you're right, I'll be fishing quite a bit this week, so I've got this week off, and then next week I will sit, like all your viewers, in front of the television, and I will not move and watch every shot that I possibly can. It's, for a European, the Ryder Cup is it's everything. It's, winning individual tournaments are wonderful, they're brilliant, and the bigger the better and all that sort of stuff. But the team thing, I don't know, it just means so much to Europeans that when you do it and you're part of it, you can't explain it. You know, the great Sam Torrance once said to me, until you play your first Ryder Cup, it's like having your first child. You don't really know what it's like until you actually do it. And I was fortunate enough to play at those times, as you said, and be involved as a vice captain and then as a captain, which was a huge honour. But, it's just special. It's like nothing else we do. Nothing. There's nothing that comes close to playing in a Ryder Cup. We
mentioned the 2006 Ryder Cup at the K Club. I've witnessed some pretty loud events in golf. Rory winning the career Grand Slam, Jack's final putt in an Open, St Andrews. I've never heard a noise as loud on a golf course in my life as that Friday morning when you were announced onto the first tee at the K Club. What was that experience like that week for you? It was
surreal, Eamon. It was, with Heather having passed away 6 weeks prior to that, one of her dying wishes was that if I got a call from Woozy and he asked me to play, that she wanted me to play. And thankfully I got the call from Woozy and I played, and it was obviously very emotional. Tiger had lost his dad as well, not much before that, and we saw each other in the range earlier that week, and it was special. It was a mixture, obviously it was a mixture of emotions. I didn't know how I was going to play, but thankfully Ian Woosnam was absolutely brilliant with me, put me with my old stalwart, Mr. Westwood, and that was obviously made things much easier for me, because we're so close friends, and we'd travel the world and played, we know each other inside out, and I was more worried about going there and not performing to not help my teammates. It was all about the team. And if I didn't think I was going to be able to contribute, I would have politely declined Woozy's invitation. But I had those close to me at the time were telling me, no, you got to go and play. And I did. And I'm glad I did. That outpouring of support that I felt from not just the Irish crowd that week, the American visitors, the American team, everybody, still touches me to this moment. When I think about it, the reception they gave me for, I don't know, feeling my pain, whatever it was, but it just was so special. You're right, the roar was huge, and I stood in that first tee, and I promise you, Eamon, I didn't know if I was going to duff it, top it, snap it 30 yards. I had no idea what the emotions, what I was going to be able to do, and as it transpired, I hit a 320 down the middle, hit a wedge onto the green, hold it from 15 foot for birdie. So, that's what I was there to do, to try and help the European team.
That was a heck of a statement on that first hole of the Ryder Cup that day. 20 years later, you were in a position to make the kind of calls that Ian Woosnam made to you. Yes. You were a captain for an away team that played in the United States. Is that much more difficult, do you think, to be the away team, or is it that overstated some way?
No, it's much more difficult to be an away team captain. we we got completely outplayed by a very, very strong American team, and Davis Love and his team played exceptional golf at Hazeltine, and were the deserved winners. They played wonderful, and in hindsight, you look back and see, could you have done something differently? Yes, you probably could. You probably couldn't. You may have done this, you may have done that, but that's the poison chalice of being an away captain. The home captain sets up the golf course the way they see fit, the way they think is going to help their team best. The away captain, doesn't have a say. But that in itself, you've got some of the best players in the world going against each other head to head for 18 holes. Anybody can win that. That's just the best players in the world, and whoever gets that momentum and holds on to it usually are going to be the ones that's going to win. Momentum is huge in the Ryder Cup. It's massive, and that particular week was a tough week for us Europeans in Hazeltine. The American guys, as I said, they played wonderfully well, and obviously won. So as you do all your prep, you do as much as you possibly can. You put so much thought. Well, everybody does, but you put so much thought and prep into it, and then you're either a wonderful captain because you won, or you're an awful captain because you lost. That's part of the whole gig. Some of the stick I think Zach Johnson got the last time in Rome was very unfounded, because the guys are going there trying as hard as they can. They just, you don't want to lose. You're a proud professional golfer, and to be given the honour of being a Ryder Cup captain means that you've achieved something in the game, and as such, you're a competitor, and you don't want to lose. But unfortunately, one team's going to play great, and the other team is maybe going to play great, but just not quite as good as the other one. So the margins are so fine. But it seems to be, especially in recent times, that the home advantage turns into a massive change in the result. Because the competitive side to it with the home advantage seems to be missing maybe a little bit.
Rory told The Guardian newspaper yesterday that Luke Donald has given his team virtual reality headsets, and they're piping in the kind of abuse that he thinks they might actually get from the Bethpage fans next week. What was the crowd vibe like in your time playing, Darren? Was it as bad as some people have suggested over the years?
The home support is a huge part of the Ryder Cup. We as players and captains and vice captains know what it's going to be like. It's patriotic. They want their team to win. The Americans come to Europe and it's ole, ole, ole. All the home people are the Europeans are going like that, and we go to America, it's USA, 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 and that's what it should be. Occasionally it crosses the line. Occasionally it gets personal. Monty got ridiculous abuse at Brookline. I mean, it was just unfair and harsh with what he got. But being an away team, that's part of it. That's why it's so difficult. Another reason why it's so difficult to win on the road. And you look at New Yorkers, they're fans, they're passionate, they're supportive, they're loud. That's what they do, and Bethpage is going to be that way. Keegan and his team are going to be desperate to try and win that Ryder Cup back again, and they're going to have the support of that home crowd. Now, if they get off to a great start, then brilliant. If they don't, then we'll see how the crowd reacts. But that home support, that the 12th man, the 13th man, whatever way you want to call it, it makes a difference. It truly does.
Of course, Monty got a lot of abuse in the locker room as well, but most of it was from you and Westwood, although it was fairly good-natured at the time.
Westy was awful.
What do you make of the players being paid now on the American side, Darren? Does that sit okay with you?
No, 100% that does not sit well with me, Eamon. You can ask any of those guys in that European team, would they accept money? Everyone to a T will say no. It's not about money. That's not what the Ryder Cup's about. The Ryder Cup was never about money. And the Americans are getting $500,000 each for $200,000 of a stipend and $300,000 to either give to charity or keep for themselves. $500,000 is by anybody's terms, that's a lot of money. The Europeans would live and die just to make the team. I think if you Google there and take a look at Matt Wallace's reaction whenever he just missed out knowing he was just going to miss out after Switzerland. That tells you all about what it means to the Europeans to make the team. Listen, I'm not demeaning any of the Americans for, the disappointment not making the team or whatever, but the money just doesn't sit right with me. That's certainly, as a European player, when asked about money, that does not come into the equation. Maybe that's why they're more of a team. Maybe they pull so hard for each other that the money is not. That's completely irrelevant to what they're trying to achieve.
And of course, this is the same team for the most part, actually genetically the exact same team that Luke had 2 years ago in Rome. Do you think it's a tougher challenge for Luke as a captain this time around? Because he had a very successful playbook that clearly worked 2 years ago. How much adjustment does he need to make just to throw Keegan Bradley off the scent before he sends his lineup out next week?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much of an adjustment he can make. Because if you take a look, Eamon, and anybody that, obviously following that Ryder Cup, they were so good in Rome, it's very difficult to move off that playbook. Does he want to throw Keegan a curveball? I don't know. That's up to him. But with the way the guys played the last time, why would you throw a curveball? I think I just heard the end of your last segment there, and you're talking about how deep the Europeans are. They really are. This is probably, I don't know, maybe as deep and as strong a European team that's ever been gone over to America to represent Europe. And I'm looking at the likes of Seve and Jose Maria and Bernard and Monty and all those teams. But this team right now, led by Rory, and, they're pretty good. Tommy Fleet will win the Tour Championship. You just got to look at somebody who's won our PGA, Alex Noren, and he's not on the team. But by his own admission said he wasn't good enough to make the team. He didn't play well enough at the right time. But this team is a very strong, a very deep European team. So, and the big difference here as well is that they're experienced. They've been there and done it before. It's not a European team that's going to America with a lot of rookies on the team, with all due respect. An away game is a tough game for a rookie. It's a tough game for a rookie at home, but it's even harder with a tough game away. And Europe have got the luxury of only one. So this is a deep European team, and I'd expect them to be very, very strong at Bethpage.
He is Darren Clarke, OBE, to give him his full, correct royal title as conferred upon him, and he knows it pains an Irishman.
I didn't think you would ever say that, Eamon.
It pains me, Darren. It pains me.
Let me just have a little sip of my DC Breeze to celebrate that there, Eamon. Thank you very much.
I hope that's all just grapefruit juice in there. Darren, it's always great to catch up with you.
You too, Eamon. Nice jumper, nice orange jumper there. Well done, Eamon. Thank you.